Hello and welcome to the Modern Witches podcast. We are here to discuss the energetic and astrological transits of Capricorn season, starting from January 11th and moving through January 19th when the sun enters Aquarius. And I'm here with Mariana and Karima. Hello, both of you.
Yeah.
Hello.
We are recording this sort of in the middle of December. And we actually had to, this is our second try at recording this part of Capricorn season because the energy has been wild.
Yeah.
I'm sure you listeners are experiencing some version of this as well. Um, but here we are. We're here to dance with all of it. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Yeah, it has been wild. We tried to, as Mars and Mercury both retrograding when we tried recording this first time, it really didn't go smoothly.
No.
And
hmm
and it's funny how always you're proof that this works. It has merit and a huge impact and influence on us. And yesterday, Mercury, as we record this, yesterday, Mercury went direct and it's so much smoother. Thank God.
Yeah. I'm happy. I'm happy for Mercury going direct. But it's like I don't know how you managing it, but like the Mars retrograde, I didn't expect a very like a hard shift. It was a very hard shift for me. And I know I'm an Aries ascendant. I know that's my ruler. I know I will feel it more. But still, like it was pretty intense. And I just feel like with this opposition to Pluto, it makes everything more, even bigger with everything that's happening in the news, all the changes. I feel like you can feel that this push for revolution is definitely here through people. There's something boiling in the cauldron that I just feel like we were talking about it earlier. Like Pluto has been in Aquarius for just the past like 20 minutes and is already like
Mhm.
a lot of is being unfold, a lot of is happening. And with the Mars station in retrograde, I felt like it was just like a full we pull focus and it was very clear of what state of mind we are in the world right now with a lot of changing. And I don't think they are good changing. Some of them are good, some of them are, I just feel that they're good and from a good place, but there's a lot of theme around wars, land, dead, death in general that is very predominant right now in our everyday life. And the impact that it has on us on every day is kind of it's becoming harder and harder to have a day-to-day life with your kids, with your family, and acknowledging what is going on in the world. And this Mars Pluto opposition is just the is like the touch of all of it for me. So I was wondering how you felt about it.
Well, I definitely felt, as you said, like I'm also Aries rising and ruled by Mars. It has been like honestly kick in the gut. If I can't even like how else to describe this Mars retrograde, it has been one of the more difficult ones.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying this earlier when we started, before we started recording, that it's very inflammatory, both in the body. I feel like all of us have been sick through this
Mm-hmm.
past, through the shadow period and the retrograde and all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it has been very inflammatory in the outer world. It has been very volatile. We all know, like Karima, you said. And also, even like as you were speaking, like this um, thing that happened with the killing of the CEO of United Healthcare in New York. And I'm like, as I was thinking, it couldn't be more like prominent. And speaking of Mars and Leo, so someone becoming famous for like a volatile act against Pluto in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
like that
yes.
applying opposition. It's sort of like from the books. It's
Yeah.
just so
Mm.
like clear. And that opposition is like we are coming to a perfected opposition just in few, like in what, like couple of weeks, I feel like at the end of December, we're gonna have the actual perfected opposition. And we're
It's
gonna
actually
have
just, yeah,
it
it's
happened
in early
already?
January,
Like
right?
early January, yeah.
Mhm.
It's somewhere there. And it's just it is so prominent that things keep happening and within the orb. And it's not a big orb. It's only what, like 5-degree orb. That's
Mm.
why everything we don't have though, because Mars is moving so slowly, but the exact opposition is only in January, but the orb is so like short.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
why things are happening, because everything is just jam-packed within this period of time. And we're going to have a third Mars Pluto opposition sometime in spring. We'll
Spring,
talk.
yeah.
Yeah, it's in spring, I think April or May or something like that. It's just so it feels very, yeah, inflammatory. And I urge everyone listening to bring down inflammation both
Mm.
internally and externally as much as you can. Cool it down. I don't
Yeah.
know, find the ways to cool it down. I don't know, Casey,
Yeah.
maybe you have some, I don't know, tools or suggestions for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have Mars opposite Pluto exact in my natal chart.
Mm.
Um, and it is about finding a way to release the energy, like screaming into a pillow,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, because Pluto also has this repressive quality to it, because it represents shame. It can force us to like hide the Martian impulse in some way, especially if you're socialized feminine in any way. It's like it's really important not to let things get too pressurized, like Mariana was talking about. So doing little things to like release is so,
Yeah.
so important. So, so
Yeah.
important.
Mhm.
Even if it's just like going for a run, dancing in your kitchen, singing in the shower. I don't know, just like doing the
Yeah.
things that can help you express any of this heat and frustration is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And Mars retrograde is internally oriented. So all this frustration is going to
Mm,
affect your physical reality, your physical body, because retrograde is always internally oriented. So you're going to feel like if you don't do what Casey just said, it's going to be very, and I do feel this frustration, like this sense that I am in the vacuum and I'm not moving anywhere personally. And
right.
just choosing little actions and doing them, just releasing that tension, just in the very micro ways,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't do it in major ways right now. It wouldn't be sustainable, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to mention, Pluto transits can have quite a large orb as I understand them. So the fact that all of this is kind of happening within these 5 degrees, we're
Yeah.
feeling this energy build for a long time and we're like really in this bubble. So what we're talking about is very applicable right now, but like for like a month,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
then when we move back into Cancer and we move back towards this Leo, um, sort of opposition, it's just in the air. We're going to be feeling it for a while, and whatever is happening during these periods of times is also shaping our reality. So, it's something to be mindful of for like the first half of 2025.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like 2025 is like having we actually start the new year in June. Like it's like
I like that.
actually it's
Yeah.
like it's
It's so true.
it's just wild to me when when I see it I'm like am I going into 2025 really like is still gonna like be in between of 2024, 2025, for the first month. I feel like
Totally. That's
um
why I think this period between like the full moon in Gemini, which we just had here as we're recording, and like the solstice and the new moon in Capricorn, this is such a good time for clearing work, like
yeah,
deep clearing work, resetting your home, like doing kind things to your body, like, I don't know, just clearing out as much as you physically can,
yeah,
um, just to kind of help with this energy because we don't want to be taking so much baggage with us into
yeah,
2025.
yeah.
There is an opportunity to like get clarity around what you want to leave behind. You might not be able to like make a clean break or like leave it behind in this like easy, neat way. But I think having awareness around it and some clarity or intentions behind it is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Clearing, and like you said, with Mars, it's cutting away. It's kind of
Yeah.
slowly, like little pieces of
Mm,
dead matter.
Yeah. We are being asked to trim the dead weight. But it's
Mhm.
going to be a process, I think. So,
yeah.
but the other big theme that we wanted to discuss, sorry, Mariana, I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh no, I think
Okay. Or Karima.
No, 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 no.
Sorry. Okay.
That, we were getting to the same thing.
Okay. um, yeah, the other big theme of this episode and of our 2025 and beyond is the North Node entering Pisces and the South Node entering Virgo, which happens on January 11th.
oh
Hmm.
God. This is my natal nodal axis. I'm like, oh God, it's coming. This is a theme. It's so it's so interesting. First thing I want to say in general about nodes changing signs is that for me, the first 6 months of the nodal change for any signs is primarily focused on the south node placement. So this we like there's this talk about we move towards or the themes of north node become more prominent. No, it doesn't until at least 6 months in. The prominent one always the south node in the beginning, from my observation. The
Oh my God,
south,
you're so right. You're so right. Just thinking about it right now. And try to see on my personal life how the
yeah,
past changing nodes have affected me. Definitely felt the south nodes first
yeah.
as like a purging, like a very pulling focus, and then switching to the nodes, the north node, definitely.
Yeah. And I've noticed this with all the like it's always like that south node is like, well, you got to deal with me first. So when that
Yeah.
wherever you have that Virgo placement in your chart, you got to deal with that first and take care of it. And because I don't subscribe to the letting go or like leaving in the past narrative. For me, it's sort of like finding like creating a proper foundation out of the south node, creating a proper base out of the south node upon which you can kind of try to explore the north node,
Mm-hmm.
so kind of having a more spiritual, because south node is a very spiritual placement, having a bit more of a spiritual connection to that part of your chart, and then on that spiritual base moving in a more matter, in a more material reality towards the north node.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
how it looks to me.
It's
So yeah.
it's almost like a restructuration of your foundation with the south node. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I do feel it's a mix of both of like transforming what is not working, but it asks for shredding. Like you have to let go of some like stuff that you cannot carry anymore, to be able to be lighter to go to the head of the dragon, the North Node. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I do join you on that. That's like the restructuration, the rethinking of where the South Node is, like obviously here on January 11th in Virgo and what house is speak to for each and one of us. It's good to start that first there. If it's like too confusing with this axis, like just start with where's my South Node in Virgo, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the key. key words or the theme of that part is where you should start. Definitely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about that. Kind of
Mhm.
open up what these placements mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to think about the South Node as compost too. Like,
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
you
it
know,
helps to move upwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's like if
Feeding
you
the
can,
soil.
yeah, can kind of like transmute whatever is in the South Node into something that is like, enriching
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for
Mhm.
your growth. Um, that's a good thing. And Virgo, um, is a mutable earth sign. That's very much about being of service. That's like one of the archetypes I really think about with Virgo is like, how do we be of service? Um, and how do we nurture and heal through acts of service or through service orientation?
Mhm.
Um, and this can obviously be embodied in various different ways. Um, but there's definitely something there for me with this like polarity between Virgo and Pisces, um, the service oriented Virgo, um, and sort of this like more transcendent healing energy of Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
What do
Yeah.
you all think?
I like the when you were talking, I was thinking of Virgo being in service in the tangible world.
Mm,
Like, in the physical, like using his hand. Virgo is, hand, using his hand. And like when we go to Pisces, like a more transcendent, to use that word, which is more around channeling, healing, with a more broader way, connected to something in the unseen world. If we
mm,
want to take more spiritually, the spiritual aspect of this axis is definitely both. I feel both. I feel like I have a question of services, but like in different spaces, you know, and different aspect of our life. And I think both we need the balance of both. Healing through the unseen or whatever your higher self, the light, Akashic record, whatever you use are in your practice. And there is something with Virgo using your hand, your tangible physical body to align in that world too. So yeah, I do vibe with that a lot.
Yeah. When I think about Virgo, I think about, for me personally, two things. It's health, healing, and um, ability to know your boundaries,
Mm,
know how much of you can you give, of how much of you are available um, to offer up tangibly where your physical reality doesn't suffer as a result of you giving your
mm-hmm,
health. So for me, I often think about Virgo as like, what is the spiritual component of health? How health and being healthy and being vibrant and having vitality is essential to the spiritual reality, and how not having those things is detrimental. I've known, like for me, health is this like a central thing, with especially having that nodal placement natally. I'm like, there's nothing more important through like history of my life and like how I was growing up than having health, and like growing up having to take care of sick people like one after another, and having that, and then realizing the North Node in Pisces placement and like transit is, you gotta you can't control things, and sometimes it is truly about that, the spiritual component of North Node and Pisces is like things are out of your hands, and there's because no nodes, it's not about you doing something really. It's especially nodes with Pisces and Virgo. It's about accepting what is and not going against what is, at least in your mind, Virgo. Not
mm-hmm,
fighting it mentally, even if it's something that's leaving your life, leaving your immediate environment, leaving your whatever it is, because
mm-hmm,
North Node and Pisces will be taking things out of us,
mm-hmm,
and not. fighting or grasping to hold on to those things through that South Node in Virgo. That's what, and also like, yeah, healing. Healing is about recognizing where you do not have control
Mm-hmm.
and just being okay with that. It sounds very, but this nodal axis are truly about that. It's something that is divine, like you don't have control. Pisces, the 12th house traditionally, right? So you don't have control over something that is done and gone.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to just be acceptant. And in that, there is a healing.
Yeah. And I feel like in the period of the time period that we are in this world, like right now, being
Mm-hmm.
in service, helping, healing with the atrocity that we've been seeing, it's gonna be a big topic, and also boundaries, being able to move forward and not getting eating raw by hates or pain, or because that can be very challenging to see atrocity and to feel it, to be able to try to do something about it, or to not avoid it, but at the same time putting clear boundaries to not attack your immune system, to not attack your mind, and to be able to do the difference between my life, what I'm living on a day to day, and what is happening in the world. Because with a, like I say, a phone, like we can be deeply being pulled into that world, and it can be tough. It can be tough to manage the pain, the rage. And so the exercise of boundaries is going to be a big theme. And so just a little bit of uh, just a little reminder that we have a bonus episode with Jessica Lignadu that we just posted last Friday. And that we talk about boundaries a lot. And Jessica Lignadu has a whole workshop on energetic boundaries. And we felt that it was the time to put it on and to offer it to you guys, because it is about boundaries. This transit is deeply about boundaries on any level. So I invite you to all listen to that episode, because that gives you, she gives a lot of tools to be able to manage it. Um,
We need them.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Karima. But this is the theme, we're going to be talking about a lot
Mm-hmm.
moving
Yeah.
forward. So, um, yeah, be conscious of where Pisces and Virgo, like what houses they live in your chart, your natal chart. Um, yeah, and we'll see. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of ways where we're being called to be of service or participate in care work
Yeah.
as our world evolves really rapidly and devolves really rapidly. There's going to be a lot of opportunity to step into more community relationships with each other. I think we're going to have to support each other in these various different ways as we continue to see how the systems don't support us or care for us, and on a very basic level. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
so, yeah,
just
so
notice
true.
where you're being called to show up.
And this is the most important thing with the nodes. Again, it's not about what you do with nodes, it's observing what's happening in those parts of your chart and responding and acting and creating some kind of appropriate structures around what's happening
Mm-hmm.
that are healing and supporting you. And yeah, it is like South Node, Mercury ruled South Node. Again, being selective about what you do, what you speak, what you listen to, what you eat. And so you can expand and gain more understanding with through Jupiterian means. You can understand how the world functions better, how things are, how fair or unfair they are, and how you can apply yourself or your knowledge in this
Mm-hmm.
world.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So This nodal shift happens on January 11th. Um, and then I guess it's just the next day that Mars forms a trine with Neptune, Mars in Cancer,
Mhm.
that retrograde Mars forms a trine to Neptune in Pisces
Mhm.
at 27 degrees.
It's the second one. The first one was on October 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the story keeps unfolding in terms of what our how conscious, unconscious our actions are, and what drives our actions, and how much of that is like the subconscious reality that has been built up throughout our lives that like drives our choices, and how much of that is actually
Yeah.
on the surface, and we understand why we do what we do. And I think Mars trine, because it's harmonious aspect, Neptune is more of understanding, not maybe changing, but becoming more aware about things that we do just on autopilot versus with a conscious involvement of our like
Mm-hmm.
bodies and minds.
And this, yeah, like you mentioned also, Mariana, that this is the second one. And it's very interesting for me because in terms of world even, I'm not talking about a personal life, but I feel like, Neptune is the illusion, is the dogma, is the ideology, is the dream, is what we want to create, like whatever the dream is. And in Pisces is like no border, like just spread out. And Mars is just giving in Cancer, it's this need to protect, this need to protect whatever we have. And it's just this transit, it just feel, it give a vibe of like more the just like the how you say it in English, the justify mean the needs or the needs mean I don't remember this expression. Is like
Yeah.
I have a quest, I'm ready to do everything that I can to do that quest. And it's very what we've been feeling in that world. Like my pain is valuable. I can destroy everything around me and just go for it. And it's just being fed by this Neptune vision, in Pisces. And Mars in Cancer is very brutal in protecting what it is, what he has. So I just feel like with what is happening in the world right now, it just is so true. I just feel like the Mars in Cancer, that trine Neptune, just embody that kind of crazy vision, and like I can do anything just to go for it. And Mars is war. It's like it can be violent. In Cancer, it doesn't feel comfortable. It's water. Its emotion is just like running wild. And it's just feel like it can be intense. It can be very intense on January 12th around that date, because that just give the freedom and the permission for crazy idea to just run wild and to put it in action, just make it happen. Even if it is the craziest vision or the craziest ideology or extreme religious. That's what I feel with that transit. And
Mm.
that's what we've been going through right now. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And this is gonna be active at the full moon the next day
Mm-hmm.
on January 13th.
Yeah.
And this might be like a bit of a digression, but you just like really hit something for me, Karima, when you were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to mention that 2025 is the year of the hermit in like tarot mythology, our
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
So the hermit is ruled by Virgo. So this is like really beautifully mirroring this nodal shift as
Mm-hmm.
well, um, with the South Node in Virgo. And the hermit is a really interesting archetype that, you know, is about finding our inner wisdom and our inner knowing and not being tethered or beholden to systems of belief that are rooted in like authority.
Mm.
So the hermit as an archetype is a religious seeker, a spiritual seeker who actually has left traditional religion, and is kind of following their own gnosis, their own knowing, their own spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a very important thing to mention about that archetype because they're basically disavowing these collectivist ideologies. You know, they're disavowing traditional religion, they're
Mm-hmm.
disavowing nationalism,
Mm-hmm.
fascism, Nazism. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're against those things. They're on their own path of inner
Mm-hmm.
knowing. So I think this is going to be like a really important guide for us this year. Um, and there's so much to unpack about it. I am going to be teaching a workshop in January on this archetype and
Mm-hmm.
what it means for the collective. Um, but I just want to mention it because it feels so right on. And I feel like that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that piece you were talking about of like not getting swept up, not letting our emotions get swept up in this like collective fervor, um, is a really important piece of what the hermit teaches us.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Thank you
such
for
a good
that,
point.
Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
was
my
nice.
it was very and it's my card. It's my soul card.
Oh, wow. I
Oh,
love that.
Hermit.
nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very
Fun.
interesting.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Fun.
Definitely.
Yeah. I resonate with what you said this
Yeah.
morning. Mm.
It's going to be a big teacher for us for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but let's look at this full moon because it's
Yeah.
a doozy, I feel. This full moon is on January 13th. Full moon in
Mhm.
Cancer, 23 degrees. And it's making some interesting aspects. As we mentioned, this trine between Neptune in Pisces and Mars in Cancer is active. And the moon is also making a sextile to Uranus,
Do you want to
which
share your
is,
screen, Casey?
oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so it's open on the full moon in Cancer.
Nice.
So here, I don't know, can you see my arrow here?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a full moon in the applying conjunction to Mars here.
Mm-hmm.
In this is the sun in a separate conjunction from Pluto. So something happens right prior to this full moon, and there's a response right after it. It feels like it. And this is what's interesting here is that this moon Mars not only trine in Neptune in Pisces, but also freshly ingressed North Node in Pisces.
Mm.
Mm,
So there's this, it acts as an expansion because North Node always acts as an expansion when it's found in the aspect to something. So it expands this people wherever this moon in Cancer are with Mars in response to this sun in Capricorn somehow. So, and there's an ideological expansion.
yeah. I
That's
mean, it's also just like, it seems to me like public outrage or frustration, like public.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
It feels like a very powerful full moon
mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
a lot of emotion running wild. That's how I feel when I see it. I say a
Mhm.
lot of emotion because I just feel the Mars influencing the moon. For me, it's gonna be, yeah, I keep coming back to rage and anger because
Mm-hmm.
I feel the second part of this Capricorn season is deeply watery. It's like a lot of water happening.
Yeah.
Like, and when I see the moon just being influenced by Mars, is like we can talk about the moon as our emotion or our body, how we feel. Like it represents a lot of on the emotional level and how we feel. So you add Mars into the mix, and especially because it's a full moon in Cancer, it is ruled by this moon, literally. And the moon is so important in that lunation, double than any
Mhm.
other lunation, because it's just a full moon in Cancer. It's ruled by the moon. And having Mars is just, I think it's just like heating our, what we already feel. It's just put it up, it's rising up, it's ancient, and I don't feel it's smooth. It's not like a soft, Mars is not soft. So I do feel during that period, we have a lot of things happening in January too, with a
Mm.
new president coming in. It can feel overwhelming with everything that can happen, and our emotion can be very intensified by this event, no matter where you feel on the spectrum.
Mhm.
So it's a big month for in America, in United States. We're entering definitely a new 4-year cycle.
I think too, like, I'm just really remembering that Netanyahu has promised to make some big announcement after the inauguration in the US.
Yeah.
So I do think that we're going to see
Yeah.
something is going to be revealed about the status of the ongoing genocide and wars in the Middle East, I believe,
Hmm.
and our role in it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm also noticing here is that Lilith is square in this full moon
mm,
at
Hmm.
21 degrees of Libra. So we do have here a lot of hidden agendas um, with this lunation. And what with that, especially Mars Neptune, now I'm thinking about it with North Node, it's there will be an emotional response to acts to how do I say this? There is an attempt to present something as a safety defining moment that receives an emotional reaction. So something covered up as a safety action, a safety or something that
Hmm.
will restore safety somehow, rise like brings a lot of emotion, brings a lot of water. It's a very watery lunation with that north node with Neptune.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like north node expanding that Neptune.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uranus sextiling the new moon. So it's very like disorienting and very like water rising. It's all almost like, like what prompts tsunamis when the water in the ocean moves and the water
Yeah.
rises. It feels like that both actually in politically and socially and in the natural world. This time seems a bit kind of hectic.
Yeah.
also, like, I wanted to mention this earlier, but when we tried to record this episode previously, we were interrupted by the tsunami warning. Right when we
Yeah.
were talking about the North Node moving into Pisces, it was like there's
Yes.
actually maybe a tsunami coming, so maybe we should pause recording.
And
Um,
now it's raining like crazy here.
it's raining like
And
crazy. There was
here
just a
to
tornado in Santa Cruz.
it's insane. No,
I know
Neptune.
this is, I just want to say to our audience, I know this is not a fun episode. Sorry for that. Like, we're very like into the feelings. Like we were like very like, it's not like, hey guys, like, everything is going well. Like, so, like, I just want to mention we're aware of like the energy that we're putting on you guys right now, but we're just interpreting the sky. And then, yes, it's a
There's
very,
some intensity. There's
it's
some
some
intensity.
intensity, but I could feel ourselves right now that we're like very, like, I don't know. Like, yeah.
Yeah, bubbling up. That's what I feel. Yeah, but honestly, and there is a lot to be said about any planet leaving the sign after many years spent in that sign. That's what Neptune is doing. It's gonna come back in Pisces, but it's direct and on the way out of the sign, out of
Mm,
Pisces the first time. So anytime a planet is on the way out, about to be introduced into new territory, it's doing a lot of work. It's doing a lot of Piscean water work. It's gonna keep doing it until it enters Aries.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be like sort of like, okay, so you think you know water, you do not know water. You think you know emotions, you think you know what like collective unconscious looks like, you don't know that. So a lot of that is gonna be coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And just so folks have this like in their minds, Neptune is going to be moving into Aries in March of 2025. So, yeah,
Big
just want to
deal.
drop that in there.
And
Yeah.
it's like just to remind, like the notion of the collective and conscience. That's something we didn't mention, and thank you, Marianne, for mentioning it. It is so important in Pisces, and with Neptune, the North Node going in Pisces. It's Pisces is the collective and conscience, and with
Mhm.
Neptune in it, it's just, and especially for that lunation, very close to the nodes. It's just it can be like idealizing some part of ourselves or some part of a story, or like being very on the negative side. Like it's pulling us in two direction, depending of view of the person. I feel like there is this notion for some of people, like it was better before and so we need to get better. So there's this collective like ideology with Neptune that can idealize everything, you know, and making the dream that's our goal and we need to reach to that. Or it can be on the other side when it's like very much like depressed, very much pushing us down emotionally and like seeing everything dark. So Neptune has this role sometime, but the collective and conscience here, it's so important in terms of like how we're gonna be linked to each other
Mm.
Mhm.
and how the memories of many different things of like our human life's gonna be awakened. For me, it was like I feel like the
Yeah.
notion of justice, the notion of healing, the notion of human being, the notion of like how we treat each other. There's a lot of different notion related to human with Pisces. And when you include the collective and conscience, it's how altogether we're gonna treat ourselves, like, and each other. And yeah, it's I just feel like we're going through definitely a big shift collectively.
Yeah, definitely. Something comes to mind in terms of love when we speak about Pisces. For
Mm-hmm.
me, and we didn't touch much about on this with when we were speaking about the nodes, but for me, when we speak about the North Node in Pisces, with about Neptune in Pisces, anything in Pisces, it's primarily a conversation about the concept of love versus the concept of putting someone or something on pedestal.
Mm.
Because that is the there's a difference. It's like I heard it somewhere recently. That's why it came to mind. Where it's like, do you want to be loved or do you want to be put on pedestal? If you want to be put on pedestal, you can't be yourself. If you want to be loved, you and that Neptune illusion, it's like sort of evolving from that, putting a society on pedestal, a person on pedestal, like your
Mm-hmm.
love interest, your partner, or seeing the flaws, sort of like stripping that illusion off and having this kind of evolved version of
Yeah.
North Node in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces. So I think in many ways this is a task, sort of like not allowing this subconscious illusionary veils to dictate and see the imperfection and find the like I don't want to sound too clear, but find the way back to that like pure, not perfect concept of love
Mm-hmm.
where there's a space for some, I don't know, transformations.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I pulled a card for this lunation because I was like, okay, what are we doing with this
Mhm.
energy, folks? Um, and was like kind of hoping it would be less intense, but it is a spell for ending
Oh,
It
from the
couldn't be
Weird Sisters
more
Circle.
appropriate.
Yeah. And like the this card has scissors on it, which is a very Martian thing. Um, with this being a pretty Martian lunation. And yeah, I would say this is just continues to be the theme when I look at the new year. It's like spell for endings. What did I pull yesterday? I pulled like spell for breaking cycles.
yeah.
It's time to I think we've all been like in some version of some exercise where it's like, wow, I really I need to stop doing XYZ. And now it's really time to like, okay, how am I going to stop doing XYZ? Like, what is my plan? What is the strategy? How am I really going to stop playing into these systems that keep me stuck or stagnant or, playing into the wrong game? So
Mhm.
it's a big one.
It's
Yeah.
a big
Yeah,
one.
yeah, guys.
The only thing that I feel like I hope a little bit, I always try to find hope, is the Venus in Pisces.
Yeah.
Um, like you were mentioning love, Mariana, this is
Mhm.
definitely something that we can lean on. Because the next day there is on January 14th is the square to Jupiter in Gemini at 12 degrees. So it's I feel that is something we can lean in.
Mm-hmm.
Even like you mentioned, Casey, there's an ending. There's definitely an ending. Like there's something. We're entering in a new era of world or whatever is happening right now.
It's yeah,
Um,
it's major, major.
Major and Venus in Pisces, I hope will help us to
Mm.
find hope, find love, find connection, find
Well,
And like,
pleasure
yeah.
mhm.
in what is upcoming for us. Because yes, it might be hard, but like we might find our community, our group to fight, and that's where we find the love. That's where we find hope. That's where yes, there's a lot of upheaval and like a lot of evil happening, but there's also a lot of good that we don't mention as much as we want or see as much as we want, and that we need to lean more towards people that are doing actions and activism and like giving us hope for a better future. So the Venus in Pisces, I think, can be that figure, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I love that this Venus square Jupiter right after the full moon. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it really reminds me of this energetic principle. It's like, energy loves to fill space. So once
Mhm.
there's this like ending, like we have to refill our cups with the things that we truly value or that
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
truly like light us up inside. And that feels like this opportunity with this Venus square Jupiter is like, okay, how do if something isn't really feeling like an alignment for you, like what does feel in alignment
Yeah.
now? So,
Yeah.
What I like about this aspect that you guys speaking about, Venus square in Jupiter, is it feels like things are really like the raptures are happening, and it might seem or might feel even where is this space for hope and optimism in all this, and this aspect is sort of like it on the mental level, just on like mental, it might seem like unjustified optimism, but it takes place. And
Mm-hmm.
it needs the energy to put some when things are like the raptures are happening, there is a need for sort of like a delusional optimism in order to move forward.
mm,
Delusional hope. That because Venus in Pisces with Jupiter in Gemini, mutable square. Square is a little bit of um, over the top when it comes to benefics and the over the top. But in this moment, it feels very appropriate. The over the top optimism, the over the top kind of like unjustified. But what do we have to hope for? What our agency in this? But
Mm-hmm.
there is this kind of energetic principle active that
mm.
kind of pulls us through the threshold.
This is a full week. So I'm just naming that, like the full moon happens on the 13th, and then it's just a very full time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have the Venus square to Jupiter in Gemini, then Sun in Capricorn opposing Mars in Cancer, Sun in Capricorn making a sextile to Pisces on the 17th, and then Venus conjoined Saturn in Pisces. Um, so I feel like it's one of those situations where the full moon hits, and then there's like all of this stuff that needs to be reckoned with. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a full Capricorn.
Yeah, it's a very intense Capricorn, end of the Capricorn season. As Saturn, also the ruler of the season, is preparing to leave Pisces. A lot of Piscean action is taking place. A lot of emphasis is, like we've already spoken about, is on collective unconscious, about what drives us individually that contributes to that cauldron of the collective pool. We all need to take responsibility, Saturn in Pisces, over what we bring into the collective energetic pool. Because like that's where that when I personally speak about individualism, which I think it's a beautiful concept, greatly misunderstood. I think primarily about energetic responsibility, about what you bring to the table. Individualism is not about, it starts there. Your individual energy you bring to the table is what we kind of need to like uncover, unravel during the Capricorn season, the responsibility over that.
I love that. Yeah. So I just do want to put a pin in the Mars Cazimi on January 15th. Um, Sun in Capricorn opposite to Mars in Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sorry, not
Mm-hmm.
Mars Cazimi. Um,
Opposition.
Opposition, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sun in Capricorn
Mhm.
opposite to Mars in Cancer. So this feels like a moment in this Mars retrograde to me. Just where what Mariana was talking about comes really into focus in terms of like how we bring our energy to the table. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what this Mars retrograde is illuminating for us. Like what is our emotion? Like where is our emotional landscape here with Mars in Cancer? Like
Yeah.
what are you really going through right now? I think this is like a window really into that, to like face some aspect of your psyche in a deeper way, into your emotions and get some clarity.
Mhm.
Um, so it might be a good time, like around this moment on January 15th, like pull a card, do some journaling, get some reflective space.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels to me with Mars and Cancer so far with me, and I feel like with many people have shown is that sometimes we do things and we do not want to take responsibility because we have been hurt. We have been wronged, be it on individual or collective level. And it can act as justification for not taking responsibility over emotions, over actions, over things. But there comes a moment where both can be true. You can be wronged, and then there's the next step. And this is an evolution of Mars and Cancer where you don't like, I'm gonna speak on the very like simple terms. You start blaming your mother,
Mm-hmm.
start
Hmm.
blaming your family, your government, be they 100% wrong, 200% wrong. There is a shift where the evolution happens. And I think this is what like Sun sheds a light on that. Mars, like, but what can you, where is your place in this? What is the benefit of not taking, what is the benefit of not taking responsibility? Has it
Mm-hmm.
served you? Has it served you individually? Has it served you collectively? Being
Hmm.
saved, expecting to be saved, has it served you? So all these questions are coming to the surface, I think, around the Mars Sun opposition on January
Mm-hmm.
15th.
Yeah. And then we have the Venus Saturn conjunction in Pisces.
When is it, Casey?
It's on the 18th of January.
18th. So yeah, here's the Venus Saturn conjunction in Pisces on January 18th. And this is the last day of Capricorn season. Then so this is, again, for me, it's all about the maturation of values.
Yeah.
We've been shown what governs our life without even if from outside, like for example, like how media or propaganda or something like, or movies shape our reality. one thing is understanding that, the other thing is unraveling that and recognizing that, all these things. I feel like taking, again, for me, it's, I don't know, I have been such a huge on this, like taking responsibility, like ride recently with this Saturn in Pisces. I think there's nothing more important for us collectively in the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking about this in like the light of the world, especially what's happening in the US as well. Um, but I think of Saturn as like authority, you know, um, the one who sets the boundaries, um,
Mm-hmm.
versus Venus, who is can be a bringer of justice, but perhaps has been undervalued as such for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there seems to be some kind of clash happening between um, value systems, like the entrenched value systems of Saturn, um, the colder, maybe harsher value systems of Saturn,
Mm-hmm.
and the more receptive and honestly more like humanitarian aspects of justice that I feel like Venus brings, ruler of femme people,
Mm-hmm.
um, marginalized people, perhaps as well at this point. So I don't know. I'm hoping this day doesn't bring some kind of revelation in that realm, that jeopardizes safety for people. But yeah, I do think, as Mariana was saying, like, how do we recenter responsibility into the hands of the communities that need them,
Mm-hmm.
that need the protection? And
Yeah.
this is something for all of us to be thinking about now. Um,
Mm. It's interesting. We're going to talk about it when we talk about Pisces season, but
mhm,
that Venus is going retrograde and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
enter in shadow on January 28th, so 10 days later. But it's still, it's already slow, kind of in this weird space, and it's going to conjunct Saturn in later degrees when it's going to be in the shadow, like retrograding back. So
mhm,
I'm saying all this, that what you said, Casey, about some suppression of Venusian principles is very likely, consider that Venus is going retrograde in Aries and then in Pisces, and then gonna have
Mm-hmm.
conjunction to Saturn in the later degrees of Pisces.
mhm.
So there will be a theme of suppression and law and something, but more so in February. So we'll
I think
see.
at this point you can still purchase abortion medication online. So I'm just going to say that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's still available to all of us at this point. So it might be a good thing to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's just like it's very interesting. It's like the first, it's the beginning right now of a cycle, and that because we are going to have two other connection. Venus going to have two other connection with Saturn
Mhm.
due to his retrograde.
Mhm.
And like I mentioned last time, we'll talk about it also in Pisces season. But Venus work in 8 year cycle,
Mhm.
and 8 years ago, it retrograded in the same part of the chart, same time that Trump was elected president.
Mhm.
So we're having that kind of review or bring back to that time in a very interesting way. And I have no doubt that, like, yeah, there's definitely a suppression, especially because Saturn is so strong right now. Because even if it's the last day of Capricorn season, we're still in Capricorn season. Saturn rules that season. And I just felt Venus, just like you mentioned, feminine principle, there's a lot that we are like there's a lot that's going to be cut there. I just feel like it's obvious, kind of, and it's like it can be scary, definitely, but I think this retrograde going to push us to fight for those. There's going to be a lot of pushback and a lot of review.
Mhm.
I just feel like this retrograde period, this hit is like the news, and then when we're moving forward and there's this retrograde, I don't want to predict anything, but I feel like there is going to be a lot of organization, fight. Because Venus retrograde, if you study a little bit of Venus retrograde is also linked to a lot of different organization and protests and revolution.
Hmm.
So I have no doubt that going to Aries, coming back, Aries very fiery, very warrior, there is going to be a fight back for sure.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
going to be very interesting to see how it unfold and how to be able to comment with all the different aspects that Venus will do during that period of time.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
This is very, like, I was not ready for that episode. I was not ready. I feel like it is heavy. It is heavy and yeah, very watery. That's definitely, even if we're an earth sign, Capricorn, like, groundliness should be a theme, but the water is taking over. Yeah.
yeah, the water is rising.
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And it is time. I feel like it's really, as I look at 2025, it's like it is time to really reckon with how our emotions, like Saturn and Pisces, like are shaping our
Yeah.
reality. Like
Yeah.
they are not just like things that make us weak or like vulnerable. No, they actually shape our reality and they're part of our
Mhm.
morphic field and like they're powerful things. So, how do we
Oh,
work with them, you know?
That's how we make
well said,
choices.
Casey. Well
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important. That emotions are often how we make choices,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right?
And then
And
we try to put it so much on the side for the past 100 years, like thinking that the mind
and
is like, you know,
that's
Yeah.
I hate it on TikTok. Sorry, but there's like this thing where people come up on TikTok and they're like, the rules of success be stronger. Let your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. I'm like, says who?
yeah, yeah.
I
White
don't.
men.
I'm like, no, but there's like, no, there's like, yeah, but mostly women saying that, like
Yes, because
on
they've
my
been
for,
indoctrinated by white men
and I'm
Hmm.
like,
to
Hmm.
think that they're,
no, your
yeah,
feelings
huh.
are guiding. If something is off, listen to that. It's not like a useless like sensation.
Yeah,
It has a base.
yeah.
I
It has a
cannot.
base.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll get through this.
We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Yeah,
Yeah, guys,
yeah,
thanks for
Um,
listening.
yeah,
yeah,
thank you so much for tuning in. And please leave us a comment. Let us know how you're feeling. We'd love to
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Get some reflections. And we'll share more about what's coming up in the new year. But we're really excited to keep showing up with you all and sharing all of this crazy world with you and all
Hmm.
yeah,
the way that it's evolving. We're in it together. So
yeah.
thanks for being here.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys. Thank you.
See you.
Bye, blessed be.